and welcome back to Breaking Down Better Call Saul. I kind of fucked this one up, kind of. As far as like watching the show, revisiting the show is concerned, done great. We're now a week away, as of me recording this video, about season 2 of Better Call Saul. We're a week away from the renewal, not the renewal. Yeah, leave that in for free. You know what I'm talking about. The renewed sense of excitement. No, the beginning of the second half of season 6, the final season. Season 6. I'll leave that in for free as well. You're welcome. And so the excitement for me is massive, but like I haven't kept up to date with filming these reviews. So basically, if you're new, to kind of recap, in the first part of this series where I talked about and reviewed season 1 was a mammoth hour-long video. I'm hoping to keep these a bit shorter as we move forward through 2, 3, 4, and 5. Basically, I watched the first 7 episodes of season 6 and then went back and did a 45-hour-long flashback and watched seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I just finished season 5, all caught up, but the issue now is I've burned through, 5 seasons worth of television, and a lot has happened. So I've kept some notes. So hopefully we'll get through this, and I'll have some things to say. But it pains me that I didn't have the time to do this review immediately after finishing season 2. But then it pains me that I don't have the time to make episode by episode videos, which I would love to do if I had the time. I just do not have the time. So there's that. Anyway, let's get on with it. So season 2, 10 episodes as normal. Episode 1 is Switch. Episode 2 is Cobbler. Episode 3 is Amarillo. Episode 3 is Gloves Off. Episode 5 is Rebecca. Episode 6 is Bali High. Episode 7 is Inflatable. Episode 8 is Fifi. Episode 9 is Nailed. And episode 10 is Click, which I only just realized is not, well, it kind of is what I thought it was, but we'll get to that, I suppose. And of course, full spoilers from here on out. So, full disclosure, I've kept notes, but my notes are very, scraggly and short, to the point, but clearly not enough to the point. For episode 1, I have Gene Garbage Room, Jimmy Done With Law, Kim Con, and Jimmy Goes to Davison, Maine. I have no idea what Kim Con means. Is Kim conned by someone? Does she con Jimmy? I have absolutely no idea. Maybe I'll look that up and come back to that at the end of the video before we wrap this up. But anyway, we open with another Gene flashback, and he gets stuck in the garbage room and kind of after hours at the Cinnabon in Nebraska, and he panics. And, doesn't want to just call the number where the police will come in or some authorities will come in, because he's still terrified after the events of Breaking Bad of being found out to be Saul Goodman or even Jimmy McGill. So that was an interesting way of showing us that he's still really paranoid about. And we see that in the first season too, with the first flashback with Gene, but this one shows us that, he will sit in a garbage room for hours just to protect even the slightest hint that he might get made in his new identity. He does say he's done with the law at this point, after season 1, and we pick up where season 1 left off, and we see him just before the end of season 1 go in and say to kind of Cliff, Maine, thank you, but no thank you. I'm not gonna take the job at Davison, Maine. So that kind of perplexes certain people involved, and Jimmy's like, I'm done with the law. But by the end of the episode, he decides to take the offer at Davison, Maine, because of Kim. And that's really, I think, the driving kind of force of Jimmy at this point is Kim. He loves her, he wants to work with her, he wants to be with her both personally and professionally, and so for her, he goes and takes this Davison, Maine job, even though it's not really his style, not really what he wants. And I love how they set that up. He turns up, and it's this kind of I really like the Davison, Maine offices. It looks like a really nice place to work if you're in that line of work. You get Cliff Maine just playing his guitar. I'm just unwinding, Jimmy, which comes back later on in the season. But that bit where he looks over at this button that says do not press, and there's like a bit of tape over it, and he has to pull the tape off and just press it. That's Jimmy, you know, and that shows you so much about his character in just a silent bit of business in the show. In episode 2, Cobbler, we get Daniel returning from season 1, and his baseball cards. My baseball cards, like the way he says baseball cards, this is like burned into my brain, even if I can't do a good impression of it. So the guy who was selling pills to Nacho in season 1 is back, and Nacho has stolen his antique baseball card. So now this Daniel guy is getting involved with, this is bringing all this shit up again, and now the cops are kind of wondering what's going on with this Daniel guy, and they're a bit iffy on the baseball card thing. So Nacho brings in Jimmy and is like, sort this shit out for me. Like it's a complete clusterfuck. So Jimmy comes in with the cobbler explanation, which I won't even go into it. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, and it's one of the more unique ways Jimmy has got someone out of a tricky situation with the police. But because he had this Daniel film a video of him sitting on this cobbler, and then that was used as to get him out of the line of police questioning. He's telling Kim this, and she's like, "So you fabricated evidence," and this is like one of the first signs of like, oh, like, it's a Slippin' Jimmy thing, but it's not a Kim Wexler thing. And I think that's even the episode where she says to Jimmy, like, I never want to hear about anything like this again. And he's like, okay. So it's one of those like tricky things where he kind of has to take a step back and realize that that stuff's not going to fly. Like, she's appalled when she finds out about the cobbler incident. And then in the 3rd episode, we see Jimmy trying to kind of he's soliciting the sandpiper kind of clients, but he can't because he's he's not working with HHM, and it would actually be wrong to solicitate and kind of go. And I don't know a lot of these terms that intimately. But, he's going to these old people and saying, hey, take my number. Like, we're going to get the sandpiper thing rolling. So he finds a way, puts on a cowboy hat, goes out he pays off a guy to kind of break down in the sandpiper, retirement home bus. And so Jimmy comes back he is working with HHM, I think. See, it's difficult to keep all these things in track and in order in my head. And he goes back to HHM and he's like, I've got all these people. And Chuck is there now, and Chuck's going into the office more, and Chuck's kind of like looking down across the table at Jimmy, and he's just like, so how come the extraordinarily large number of it wasn't solicitation now, was it? And Jimmy's like, no, it's just, I sent out a lot of mailers, and, they all came back, And no, I think, okay, so he's not working with HHM, he's with Davis and Maine, but they're working on the sandpiper thing, so that's kind of the twisting road and route to get there, I suppose. This is also where Stacy, Mike's daughter-in-law, starts complaining to Mike about gunshots that she hears in the night. Now, this is an interesting one because when I first watched this, me and Connie both felt the same way. We felt like Mike's daughter-in-law was trying to grift him out of money because she says that there's gunshots every night. So Mike stays there outside all night and there's no gunshots. And the next morning she's like, there was another gunshot again. There's something's been blown off the side of the house. Now, the story is she's got PTSD and she's just like, she's going through trauma. And Mike kind of quietly decides he needs to find more money to relocate his daughter-in-law. But I read it the first time and this time going back to it as she was just trying to grift him out of more money. So I feel like that could have been, I've said before, and I will continue to say, this is at this point in time, the best show I've ever seen. But there's still a few little chinks in the armor, and this is one of them. I feel like it could have been a bit more clear that it was her PTSD and she wasn't, because there's something about the way that she's telling Mike and the way that Mike is kind of like he always is, that kind of typical Mike. He spends half the show just, and he's kind of looking at the bullet hole, and I feel like he's thinking like, oh, she's trying to get more money out of me, but that's not the case. So okay, that's just one of those things. Now Jimmy wants to get more kind of Sandpiper clients, and so he wants to run a commercial. Clifford Main's like, well, I don't know about that. Like, I'm open to it, but we experimented with that last year, but we'll see. And off he goes, and Jimmy takes that as full carte blanche. He goes off with the student film crew, and he makes this advert. And I love it where they show him the previous Davis and Main advert, which is just so boring and bland. He's like, you paid people to make this? So he goes off. He makes this really good commercial. He shows it to Kim, and she's like, this is really great. And Cliff Main approved this. He's like, yeah. So Jimmy sends this off to the TV station, like puts it in the perfect time slot so all the old people are going to see it in the Sandpiper homes. And the phones, and he's sitting there waiting by the phones. He's got assistants ready. It's all lined up, the phone boards, the switchboards. Nothing's happening. He's like, come on, what's going on? They should be calling by now. And then suddenly it's ding, ding, ding. They start lighting up. And it's just it was a huge success. And then Cliff Main finds out about it, and he chews Jimmy's ass out. And Jimmy like pretends to Kim, oh no, it's fine. It's yeah, he's cool with it. But they tear him a new one. They're like, you can't go rogue on this. This needs approval. We need I was open to the idea of one. Like, you jumped so far ahead of this, and Jimmy is like, well, yeah, but it's like, it's like a grand all in or whatever it was to make this cheap commercial. The results are there. And he's like, I don't care. That's not how we do things. I believe in giving second chances, but he really lays down the law on Jimmy. And Ed Begley Jr., I've always liked him since I saw him in The Page Master as Macaulay Culkin's dad. Statistics. But he seems like a nice guy, and he's a very active activist in real life, Ed Begley Jr. So I like the guy, and he comes across as likable, but there's to see the sternness come out, because he does seem like a kind of really reasonable guy, but when he switches that on Jimmy, it's a really great scene, I thought. Now, episode 4, Gloves Off, great kind of teaser at the beginning where Mike comes home and he's kind of blood all over his face and stuff, but he's holding onto these two silver gloves, this little pendant, this necklace thing. And so it's the whole Tuco, Salamanca, and Mike showdown, where Nacho needs to take out Tuco, and he tries to get Mike to come in and deal with him. And he's like, yeah, so I'll just, Tuco sits behind me while I count the money, and we'll get in the car and you just drive by and just point the gun. And Mike's like, nah, that's not, and I feel like I'm almost mixing this up with something else. I don't know when that actually came in. I didn't note it down in my notes. I want to look that up, actually. I'm going to look that up because I want to get this detail of my review right. Okay, I figured out what I needed to know, and also to go back to Kim Con. I finally figured out what it was, and it's a vital part of the story. Well, kind of not a vital part, but for me it's a big part. So in the first episode of season 2, Jimmy's like, I'm done with the law, and he's out relaxing and kind of living off kind of the small amount of money that he got from, I believe, the Sandpiper, like for bringing Sandpiper to HHM, I think. So he's kind of like just lounging at this like fancy hotel, and Kim's like, she just doesn't get why he's giving up his law career. And he's like, come hang out with me. And she eventually comes over, and then they con this stock trader out of paying for their tab. And she acts as Giselle and stuff, and she loves it. Like, she loves kind of, as Jimmy will later say in season 4, rolling around in the dirt with Jimmy. But he does eventually kind of see that if he wants to keep Kim in his life, he's going to have to kind of go along with this Davis and Main thing for a little bit. Anyway, so the main thing I wanted to remember when it happens in episode 5. But episode 4, Nacho he's after Tuco. And Mike, he's like, I'm not taking the shot, And it was that. Like, Mike was like, maybe I can do it with a sniper rifle, but he's like, no, I'm not gonna. He's like, it's gonna put too much of heat on you, basically. So Mike has a different plan, and we see it play out where Mike rolls up outside of the restaurant where the Salamancas do their business, and Tuco sits there and Oh no, I think Tuco takes the money. I can't remember, there's a system. I think Nacho takes the money and Tuco's there. I forget because there's variants of it throughout throughout all the seasons, with Hector and with Lalo. Mike rolls up and just like cracks against the side of Tuco's car, gets out, walks in, and pretends like nothing's happened, and tries to order some food. And Tuco's like, and Mike's like, oh, I don't think I did. And Mike is just winding up Tuco, and Mike has already called the police at this point, and he's riling up Tuco, and makes sure that his gun, I think, gets knocked to the ground. I think, and the gun is like the big thing that's going to put Tuco down if he gets caught assaulting someone. So Mike just goads him into beating the shit out of him. And Tuco's Tuco. He's mental. So he's just beating the shit out of this old man. The police turn up, and and Mike's all bloody and stuff, and he's just like, "That all you got?" Just a great Mike moment, and yeah, I forget the exact thing with the gun and everything, but basically it's kind of the gun is the big thing that's going to send Tuco down for a long time, and he rips off the gloves, which you see in Breaking Bad. So it makes me wonder, did Tuco just buy another pair, I guess, because he loved those little silver gloves so much, but you see in the beginning that Mike took them as a trophy, and Mike's, his face is pretty banged up, but that was kind of his way of getting Tuco out of Nacho's hair for a price, obviously. But this is where the Tuco Nacho, not the Mike Nacho relationship begins to form, which is a really strong one throughout the course of the entire show, I think, even into season 6. Episode 5, Rebecca, opens with an interesting flashback of Jimmy turning up to, I don't know if he hasn't met her before. Rebecca, I believe, is the woman's name, which is Chuck's wife at the time. So Jimmy turns up, and I like how these flashbacks, they have them in low lighting kind of thing, which kind of you get away with the actors playing a bit younger, I suppose, but it also gives it this cozy feeling, especially in this scene. Wait, no, it's not. Again, I'm mixing it up because we see her again later on. Yes, this is when they're together. So Chuck is happily married, and Jimmy turns up, but Chuck is like, "Hey, full warning, my brother is something, So if we need to get out of it, you just say the word, and we'll get him out of here." But she likes Jimmy, and Jimmy's, Jimmy is in this scene is more more like extroverted and than he is as we know him in the show. He's a bit younger, he's a bit more rambunctious, and he keeps telling these lawyer jokes, and Chuck's like, rolling his eyes, and then she gets into it. She gets into the lawyer jokes, and then she starts telling lawyer jokes, and she's laughing, and Jimmy's laughing, and Chuck's like, and then the night went well, without incident for the most part. And then we see Chuck and his wife in bed, and they just sat there, and okay, all right. And then Chuck's like, oh, it would really help if I knew the joke to tell this story as effectively as possible. I think he says, "What do you call 30 lawyers up to their neck in cement?" And she's like, "Huh?" And he's like, "Not enough cement." It's something along those lines. It's perfect that I didn't have the full joke, because that's exactly the point of the scene. He gives the setup, and she's like, "Huh?" And then he delivers the punchline too quickly, so it doesn't register. And she's like, "Huh?" And he's like, it's the joke. She's like, oh, yeah. And he is, you can tell he's seething. And it's such a brilliant fucking scene, because it highlights the psychology of his disdain for his brother, and it's just, because he can't be Jimmy. Like, he is so successful, he has a career, he has a wife, he has a house, the law is his religion. He's made something of his life, and his brother hasn't. But his brother can make people laugh, and Chuck does not possess that ability, and he's a perfectionist, and it grates on him that Jimmy has something that he doesn't, and that's such a brilliant way of showing it. This is a really a big episode 5, and at this point I just want to say that Robbie Webster, who I mentioned in the previous video, I was chatting to him as I was rewatching this show, and he's like, "Oh, season 2 is my favorite." And then he later said he's not sure if it is, but he's like, it's one of his. And I was just like, really? Because in my mind's eye, before revisiting this whole show, it was like like Breaking Bad, it just gets better with every season. But now that I've gone through all of it, I think season 2 is one of the stronger ones. It's just, I love it. I was like, this was the one season I was rolling through episodes so quickly because I just kept wanting to see more. The whole Davis and Maine thing, I was just fascinated and gripped by where Jimmy was going with any of this stuff. Like, why does he keep pushing it? I mean, I know why he keeps pushing it, but like, I'm almost getting drawn in like I've never seen it before. And it was like, what's going to happen next? Even though I kind of know. But like, the fun in these earlier seasons, there were so many, like 7, 6, 5 years since I've seen them. When I watched season 5, it was a bit more fresh. But like in the earlier ones, it's like there's so much that I've forgotten about. But in this instance with season 2, it's so much great stuff, and so like the foundations are being laid for this show. And in episode 5, Kim lands Mesa Verde, which is like this massive storyline that spans the rest of the show. And it's this big bank, and at the head of it is Kevin Wattel and his associate Paige, and Kim, she's in the doghouse with HHM, and I forget why at that point in time actually. But like Howard is giving her shit. Like Howard is really pressing her, and I think that's why Jimmy took the job at Davis and Maine, because he felt like Chuck and Howard were punishing Kim, something like that, and that's where the further tension with Howard and Chuck continues with Jimmy, and it's all to do with Kim, which he brings up from time to time, but where was I going with that? So Kim needs something to get out of doc review. Like she's been put down in like the basement, kind of just marking papers or whatever, or just doing the grunt work. So she spends like all of her break time, all her lunch breaks, just like trying to find anything. And she finds this massive client, Mesa Verde, huge, like it's gonna make HHM a lot of money. And she brings them in, the meeting goes well. They say goodbye, and she's there with Howard, and it's like she's proved herself. And Howard's like, yeah, well, I think you're needed down in doc review, so we'll get someone else to take care of Mesa Verde. Like, it's such a kick in the nuts. Although Kim doesn't have any nuts, but she's she's got balls, but she doesn't have nuts. So that was like, oh, so Howard's kind of like putting in the and then there's a Chuck and Kim have this kind of like this moment, and Chuck kind of gives Kim this kind of discussion about like how Jimmy like embezzled money from their father's business when he ran this shop, and Chuck is getting his claws in there, but it's a big episode 5 because you get the Mesa Verde thing kind of kicking off. You get the backstory with not really the backstory, but like the added context of Chuck and his wife and Jimmy, and then at the end of the episode, because this is the aftermath of the Tuco stuff going down, Mike is in the diner that he frequents, and a certain gentleman saunters in to the diner and just sits down in the booth opposite Mike, and it's Hector Salamanca, Mark Margolis, who is now playing Hector, Don Hector, Tio, not in the wheelchair. We get to see him walking around and talking, and he's just like, you're gonna go to the police, and you're gonna make it right with Tuco, because Tuco can't stay in prison for very long, so I need you to say that the gun was yours. And Mike being Mike, he's just like, you can shove it. And you're like, oh, you don't know who you're dealing with, Mike. And it was just such a like, oh my god. And unlike Tuco in the first episode of season 1 of Better Call Saul, where it's like, hey kids, it's Tuco from Breaking Bad, this was more like, it's Hector time, and this makes so much sense to the story. Like, it was just, everything is just slotting together at this point, and it's like, oh, now we're gonna get Mike and Hector. This is great stuff. And then Mike is like adamant. He's like, I ain't doing shit. I ain't doing shit for you Salamancas. And he's because he's in the process of getting his daughter-in-law a new place. They're at this motel or hotel, and he's there in the hotel pool with his daughter Kaylee, his granddaughter Kaylee. And he looks over, and up on the building, it's a bit over the top, but in the distance on top of this building, it's just the twins, the Salamanca twins, just looking at him. and they just point at his daughter, and they're just, I don't know if they're like this or they're like that. And Mike is like, get out of the pool. Like, can you imagine like a normal person having their grandchild threatened with death? But Mike, you know, and that's where, Mike is just like, he ain't happy at all. And that's the that's the one thing that I really, really enjoy about season 2, is that we basically get like Mike like in a feud, like just like really like, he's just like, I just love how Mike is so just like, yeah, all those Mike grimaces, and he wants to take down Hector Salamanca. It's like a dream, like celebrity deathmatch kind of thing from the Breaking Bad universe, but we get to see it, and it makes sense because obviously Mike has to get more involved in that world for him to be where he is in Breaking Bad, as Gus is like, right hand man essentially, like, the guy, and such an important part of Gus's operation. And that kind of runs through the way that he first gets involved with Nacho, and then by extension, Tuco, Hector. It goes down the line, and that's where we get to Gus. And this season is building to Gus as well, and we get like the reveal of like Los Pollos Hermanos. Like, oh, we're getting there. We are getting there. We're getting there soon. And we do get the scene where Mike comes in to into one of the, I think it's an ice cream place that Hector and the Salamancas run, and it's kind of the front of their business, and it's at night. Nacho's there, the twins are there, Hector is there, and Mike sits there in front of him, and he's like, right, you gonna do the right thing? Because they keep pushing him, pressuring him to kind of go to the police about Tuco and say the gun wasn't his, or the gun was Mike's, because that will drastically reduce Tuco's prison sentence. And Mike's like, can't do it. And he's like, and I want 50,000. And Hector just laughs, and he's like, what did I say? Big balls. And Hector respects him. He respects that Mike is just sat there in this room full of people who would kill him at the drop of a hat and are threatening his family. And Mike's like, nah, you're going to pay me what I want. And Hector respects it, and says, all right, you're going to get what you want. So Mike kind of comes in with Jimmy, and they kind of get they kind of make the statement or whatever, and he changes his mind, but he ain't done with Hector. He could have left it there, but he didn't. Mike keeps pushing it. He's staking out the Salamancas. He's finding out what Hector's doing. He's finding out what his business is. And I love all that stuff of Mike just like pushing the boundaries and stuff. Kim has been offered a position at Schweikart and Coakley. So obviously she brought in the Mesa Verde thing, and now that's been taken away from her, and it's like, what's going on? Where's she going to land? We get a flashback of young Jimmy as a kid in his father's store, and this man who comes in and kind of rips off Jimmy's dad, and you see Jimmy kind of realizing what a pushover his dad was in his mind, but also we then find out that I'm not sure if we find, like, with the whole like Davis and Maine thing, up to a point Jimmy's kind of done with it, and so he decides, I can just leave. Like with the Davis and Maine job, he has everything he wants, like a company car. And the great thing is that like Kim gives him this like world's best lawyer coffee thermos cup, and it won't fit in the company car. It fits just right in his old beaten down, car with the door that's the wrong color, but he doesn't fit in the company car because he doesn't fit in the company car. It's really, I like that kind of symbolism stuff. It's almost on the nose, but it's kind of it's nicely kind of concealed. I think it's not quite in your face as much, but all that stuff, and he gets this expensive like $9,000 desk that he wants. I forget what it's called now, Cocobolo or something like that, and and he just but it's not him, and so he says, right, I'm done. So he gets his assistant in, and he's like, right, I'm drafting my resignation letter. And his assistant's like, you sure? He's like, yeah, absolutely. And the assistant's like, well, you don't get the bonus if you resign. And Jimmy's like, all right, don't just forget, just like scroll, like, forget I ever said anything. It's been a rough day or whatever. He says, kind of dismisses it. So he realizes he gets no money, like no bonus money, if he just quits. So now he needs to get fired. So he's doing everything just to wind up Clifford Main, like, and again, going back to like the, I'd just like to unwind a bit playing some guitar. So Jimmy's just like playing his electric, no, it's not an electric guitar. It's actually, that's in another part of the show. It's a bagpipe. He's playing bagpipes really loudly. He's clogging up the toilets, and it gets to a point where Cliff Main is just like, all right, you got it. I get it. You want to keep your bonus. You want me to fire you. Fine. And just, clearly you don't want to be here, and I think Jimmy says something like, Cliff, for the record, I don't think you're an asshole. And Cliff's like, for the record, I think you are. Something to that degree, which is a really nice button on that moment. And then he gets the Coco Bolo desk installed in his like rinky dink office back at the nail salon, and goes back to his roots. There's even a scene, I think, where he's just going stir crazy in his like fancy company apartment, and he just can't sleep, and he goes back to the nail salon, into this tiny little room, folds out the sofa bed, and lies down, and that's it. He's comfortable there. He's not the company guy, and that's good shit. That's good storytelling shit, I think. Now episode 8, we're moving forward to Fifi. Chuck takes Mesa Verde, and this is where like Jimmy he can't handle the fact that Chuck has taken this away from Kim. She worked so hard for it, and Chuck is swooping in, because Kim actually pushes to take on Mesa Verde as her own client, and she would be like this, Mesa Verde would be her sole focus. That's the way she sells it to Kevin Martell and Paige, and they're on board with it. And then she gives a great speech. She says afterwards to Jimmy, like, I nailed that speech. It was brilliant. I think I've got it. And then Chuck and Howard make this very devious, very like mind fucky kind of pitch where like, no, Kim's the right choice, I'm sure Kim knows all about this and that and this and this and of course there's this and that, and we and then they twist the knife in and they take Mesa Verde away from Kim, and Jimmy is incensed by this. He can't believe Chuck has done this. So Chuck has had a bad episode with the electricity sensitivity because he's pushing himself by going to the office all the time. And so Jimmy, he sees all the Mesa Verde boxes of notes in Chuck's office. Not in his office, really. It's in his living room, but it's on his desk. And Chuck is passed out under the space blanket on the sofa. Jimmy takes out all of the files, and there's a specific, like, address of one of the proposed sites of the Mesa Verde expansion. It's this big bank, and they've got lots of different chains and stuff. And Jimmy goes to a local photocopiers, and he doctors all of them. I think he changes it from 1216 to 1261, or the other way around. I think it's... I can't remember, because Chuck's like, it's the year after Magna Carta or something. Either way, he changes just this one like number, and he doctors them, and it's the whole scene that plays out. Even though I've seen it before, I'm stressed out because I want Jimmy to get all the the alterations in, even though it's terrible what he's did. But then arguably, what Chuck did was really personal too, and unnecessary. But then it's a cutthroat world. I don't know. It's like who's right, who's wrong, or who's wronger. Who's the most wrong in this situation? I don't know. Anyway, so he doctors all the stuff, and then they go into court, and they're just trying to get some stuff approved, and they're like, well, the address is wrong, and Chuck's like, no, that can't be right, and Paige is like, no, it is, that is the address that our bank is at, or whatever, and Chuck's like, well, you must be wrong. Like Chuck cannot even fathom the idea that he would be wrong. It's the client who's wrong. And now he looks like a complete asshole, and they decide to drop him, and they go back to Kim, and Jimmy gets what he wants. But Chuck figures it out, because he's a mad genius, and he realizes that, okay, Jimmy must have doctored these. He must have gone to a local copier's and done it while I was, he was saying that he was looking after me, but he must have gone into my files and changed them, because I know that it was that number. And so he goes to the local photocopiers, and but Jimmy has gone in just beforehand, because he's clocked that. And that's another brilliant moment where, I can't remember if he tells Kim that he did it. I think he does. I'm not entirely sure, but she knows, and I think she says, and they're kind of like dancing around it, and Kim's like, well, I would say that, in that sort of situation, you'd want to make sure that there was, absolutely no way of being caught, that there were no loose ends. And Jimmy's like, yeah. And he gets out of bed immediately and he drives over to the copiers and he pays the guy, the clerk at the photocopiers, to say, like, I wasn't here. And can we, like, erase that, like, CCTV footage as well? So he gets there just in time. And then Chuck turns up. And I'm not sure if it's Chuck's assistant, like Ernesto, who kind of takes over Jimmy's duties of, getting groceries and stuff for Chuck when Jimmy just pretty much kind of disowns Chuck after the whole, you're slipping Jimmy. You're like a chimp. Slipping Jimmy with a law degree is like a chimp with a machine gun. You're not a real lawyer. And Jimmy's done with his brother up to a point. And Ernesto from HHN becomes the new assistant. I can't remember if he comes first or if he comes with Chuck. I think he comes with Chuck, and then I can't remember the timeline of it now off the top of my head, but regardless, Chuck ends up in the photocopiers, and Jimmy's across the street, and Chuck it's just like, yeah, I'm telling you. And I think the clerk at first said that he did see Jimmy, that Ernesto came, and he said, yeah, I think I saw that guy, and now Chuck wants to know. But now he's like, oh no, I didn't see him. And Chuck's like, he must have paid you. And Chuck loses it, and the lights send him crazy, and he tips over, and his head cracks against the side. I remember seeing that the first time, jaw dropped, absolutely jaw dropping. Couldn't believe it. Like, is he dead? Like, the way that they shot that, and the crack and everything, and now Jimmy's outside. What does he do? End of episode. It's like, oh my god. And that nailed as an amazing episode, because that's also when Mike takes out one of the Salamanca trucks. And like the funny part of it is his granddaughter Kaylee is making the hose, like drilling the holes in the hose that he's going to put the nails into to kind of sabotage the Salamanca truck. So he knows when the drugs are coming in. Oh, it's not even the drugs, actually. It's the money that's being transported at this point in time. So Mike, in like a ski mask, he pulls out this nail strip, takes out the truck, neutralizes the driver without the driver seeing who he is, ties him up, doesn't kill him, gets out this kind of like hacksaw, maybe it's like a garden stripper kind of thing, and he cuts into all the tires of the truck until he finds all this money, and he steals it from Hector. And that's his way of getting back at Salamanca. But they're really skeptical because the guy wasn't killed, but they end up killing him anyway. And so Mike later feels tremendously guilty about that. That was a great episode with the Mike taking out the truck, and then obviously the big photocopier drama. And then the final episode, number 10, is Click, which is stylized, well, not stylized, but it's spelt Klick. Now, there is a very specific click at the end of the episode that I thought it was referring to, but a click as in a measure of distance is specific to what Mike is doing at the end of the episode. I think it's the final scene of the episode, actually. So there's kind of, I'm not sure if, I think it is. Anyways, there's a couple of different ways you can interpret the title of this episode. The beginning is incredible. You get Jimmy and Chuck in the hospital when their mother is on her deathbed. And Jimmy's like, come on, Chuck, you got to eat. I'm going to go get something to eat. And he leaves. And their mother becomes lucid for a brief moment. And Chuck's like, I'm here, Mum. I'm here. And she goes, Jimmy? He's like, no, it's Chuck. I'm here, Mum. It's Chuck. And she's like, Jimmy? And then she dies. I mean, if that doesn't explain so much. And I think that, I'm not sure if it's said by Chuck or Jimmy, but there's this line of like, in regards to their mother, like, our mother was proud of Chuck, but Jimmy could make her laugh, and he had that, and Chuck just devastated. And so he when Jimmy comes back, Chuck is outside of the room, and he's like, what happened? And he's like, she's gone. And Jimmy's like, oh my God, did she say anything? And Chuck's like, no. Just heartbreaking that Jimmy's mother was the last thing she said was his name. And Chuck held it back, the cold-hearted bastard. Even if I don't know, that's just not right, I both get it and I don't. And that's another thing with Chuck, and I think I have a review of season 2 somewhere on my channel, but from the time it'd be interesting to go back to it. But like, I don't hate Chuck, and people hated Chuck when in season, particularly with season 2, and I can see why. But like, you know, Jimmy stole from their dad, and like the dad went out of business, and that's not the only reason, I'm guessing, because you can see that he got taken advantage of a lot. But I can see where Chuck's coming from, especially the way Jimmy is. It's fun for us to watch Jimmy get to his hijinks, but for that person to be in your life, always fucking up in your family, you would be incredibly aware. And it's not like Chuck is like, he does want to ruin Jimmy in a lot of senses, but like, it's not like he wants Jimmy to like suffer and die. Like, he just doesn't want Jimmy near the law. He doesn't want Jimmy to be playing with things where, it's Chuck holds the law in a very high esteem. I think Chuck loved the law more than anything else in his life. But the final episode, we start with that flashback, and then we're right into the hospital again with Chuck. And he's, well, not right into that, but we come to the photocopiers, and Jimmy is like, come on, someone call 911, call 911. So he rushes in, which means he was outside. And Chuck sees Jimmy, and he's like, he realized, oh my God, you're here, I've got you. And then, Chuck passes out. And then we get to the hospital, and it's this amazing shot, just mounted on like Chuck's head, and it's like upside down, and he's panicking, and it's an amazing performance by Michael McKean in that one scene. He's great as Chuck in general, but that one sequence, fantastic. And he's just like, no, you can't. I don't give you my consent. And he's like, it's like panic attack inducing scene. It's amazing stuff. And he's like, I no EKG. Like the way he freaks out when they mention EKG, it's really great. And then they bring up, I think this is where they bring up like where Jimmy's like, because he needs to be treated and stuff, and they need to scan his brain to kind of make sure. And he's like, I'm not going in at any machine. And so Jimmy brings up I think it's the emergency temporary guardianship, where Jimmy, for that brief moment will be the guardian of Chuck and be able to make that decision for him. And when he comes in to tell Chuck that, Chuck is just like, yeah, temporary emergency guardianship, you got me right where you wanted me. You're just going to send me off to some home now, aren't you? Got what you wanted. But no, like Jimmy, he still loves his brother and doesn't want that for him. And never wanted to use this condition against him or to ship him off somewhere. So Jimmy makes sure that it's forced for Chuck to be checked out, that he's okay. And then Chuck is like catatonic, and you can tell he's playing up. He's petulant. And then Jimmy's like, okay, we're getting you home. He's like, what about the guardianship? He's like, yeah, temporary. I just wanted to make sure you're okay, And he's like, well, you were outside the photocopiers, and you knew I was going to be there. And he's like, yeah, Ernesto called me, And then he asks Ernesto, and Ernesto's like, yeah, that's, And I'm like, well, why in the fuck did Ernesto cover for Jimmy? And then we find out that, they were good friends at HHM, and Ernesto is spending a lot of time around Chuck and realizing that Chuck really has it in for Jimmy. Like he says to Kim, I think, like, he just keeps talking about he's really got it in for Jimmy. So that was kind of the little angel on Jimmy's shoulder there to kind of get out of that folk. But Chuck's not going to drop this, which he doesn't. And I'm trying to just read my last bit of notes. Temporary emergency guardianship. Okay, I think we've got everything there. We get a scene with Mike. I think it was earlier on in the season when he's looking at guns, where he might be thinking about killing Tuco. And we get the gun seller, I think from Breaking Bad. And Mike's like, actually, I don't need anything, but here's some money anyway. And the gun's like, no, it's fine. Like, I make my money on repeat business. I'll be here when you need me. And he meets him again, and we find out about Mike being a veteran and talking about how like the wood would warp on like a certain rifle if it got wet and stuff. And I think that's the first time we've got confirmation that Mike was a veteran. I think Vietnam is the implication. So Mike buys this sniper rifle, and he's gonna go out and he's gonna assassinate. Like Hector Salamanca is a politician, the president of Albuquerque. He's gonna kill Hector, and so he goes out with the sniper rifle, and he's there and he's waiting, and and I believe I heard in the behind the scenes podcast that they did all the shots through the actual sniper rifle thing to be as authentic as possible, which they admitted, like, it, you know, you could just do it in post, but they wanted to kind of push themselves a bit. And he's trying to get a clean shot on Hector, but he can't quite, and then a car alarm goes off. He goes over to his car and finds it, and there's a note saying "Don't." And this, I believe, is the season where if you take the first letter of every episode, and oh no, I'm not even sure if it's that. It's like some weird thing. It can't be, because it spells out Frings back. So FRINGSBAC. Okay, it is 10 letters. So I think if you take the first letter of every episode of season 2 and you flip them around in some form, you can spell out Frings back, which to me at the time was like, yeah, I mean, they're probably bringing in Gus, but like, I don't think that's the intention. It was. They were surprised that anyone found that out, but that was absolutely like part of their process of naming the episodes, which is crazy. So when I first saw season 2 and the ending was "Don't," I was like, what the fuck is that all about? And then it's like, oh, it's Gus. So this is another reason that like rewatching it is nice, because it's not like I have to wait a year after that, and I know it's leading into Gus, so the scene plays better for me then. But the real climax of this episode is really the the Chuck and Jimmy drama, when Chuck completely plays Jimmy like a fiddle, and he just plasters his whole house with that silver material, the space blanket stuff. And Jimmy comes in. He's like, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, I should have done this from the beginning, really." And Chuck is playing up his illness, and he's like, "Well, I realized that, you know, I must have messed up the Mesa Verde file, so I'm just gonna have to retire from law." And, you know, I don't know if he says that, but he's saying like, I need to. He really pulls at Jimmy's heartstrings, that like, you know, my mind's gone. You know, I can't do this anymore, because if I make that simple mistake, then it's, you know, that's everything that you know, he really pulls on Jimmy's heartstrings. And Jimmy's like, "Oh, well, what if you didn't make a mistake?" And Chuck's like, "What do you mean?" And Jimmy's like, "You're right. You figured it out because of course you did. Like, yes, I switched the things." And he fully admits. And Chuck's like, "You realize you just admitted to a felony?" And Jimmy's like, "Well, yeah, you know, it's your word against mine, isn't it?" And he walks out of the room, and Chuck is recording. Click. And it's like, it's paining him just to get the tape recorder, and he shoves it back in his desk. And you know, he's like doing all the mannerisms. Yeah, he's like, you know, it pained him to do that, but he recorded Jimmy's confession. What a way to end this season. Yeah, so I think there's other things. It was just like, here we go. I've gone for almost an hour. Hopefully the video's a little bit shorter than that, but yeah, fantastic season. Great stuff with Chuck and Jimmy, and Kim is a much more prominent part of the show at this point in time. I love all the Davis and Maine stuff, the little side characters, you know, like the assistants and stuff, and Ed Begley Jr. The Nacho stuff is ramping up. Like the Tuco thing was fun with Mike, and then Hector coming in, the twins, like, and some of it's all just, oh, you know. And I think there's another commercial that Jimmy runs, because I remember in the beginning of episode, this is a really good shot where like Kim is looking up and smiling at his commercial that's playing in the hospital when they're waiting for Chuck. But yeah, fantastic season 2, brilliant stuff. Anyway, I'll leave it there. There's lots more to talk about with seasons 3, 4, and 5. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.